I will show you step by step how to solve Sudoku like the top 1% of puzzle solvers. And with that, it's solving time. First, you can get some easy solves out of the way. You might notice with these two ones and this one in the row, only place for a 1 in block 3 is right here. And then if you look here in column 5, where can a 1 go? Can't be here or here because of these ones. And it can't be here because of this one. So you can solve this for a 1. Greetings, friend. This is the first puzzle from my latest rewards puzzle pack. I want to thank Sam Cappleman-Lynes for making 5 brand new puzzles for this pack. I've solved thousands of hard and extreme Sudoku puzzles, puzzles that only 1% of all people can solve. This puzzle is perfect to show you step by step how to win against almost any Sudoku. Step 1 is to test the puzzle for restrictions by going through digit restrictions from 1 to 9. So look at the ones. You'll notice there's only 2 places for a 1 here in block 5. So you want to mark that, and that'll help find the restrictions in this block. And then with these 2 ones, you only have 2 places for a 1 in block 8. So you want to mark that as well. No other solves or marks with the 1s. Move on to the 2s. Might notice with these 2s and this 2 in the column, only 1 place for a 2 in block 3. So you can solve that right away. And then in block 8 with these 2s and this 2, you can solve for 2 right there. And then we might want to see is how this 2 cuts across row 6. So you have 2 places for a 2 in block 4. So you want to mark that, but these are a pointing pair of 2s. Since they're in the same column, 2s can't be anywhere else in that column. You can't put a 2 here, otherwise you block out the 2s for block 4. So use this pointing pair with this 2 and these 2s, and you can solve for 2 now in block 7. And then with this 2 and the 2 here, mark 2s in block 6. No other marks or solves with the 2s. Move on to the 3s. You might see with these 2 3s and this 3 here, you can solve for 3 in block 7, and then follow these 3s over to the right, solve for 3 in block 9. Then use these 3s and the 3 right there. You only have 2 places for a 3 in block 3, so you can mark that. And then with these 2 3s, only 2 places for a 3 in block 5. So you've marked up all the 3s. Now you want to move on to the 4s. You notice we have a lot of 4s to start with. So with these 4s, all looking into block 5, you can solve this cell now for a 4. It's the only place a 4 can go. And you notice as soon as you displace one of your marks, you can solve the other cell right away. That's why you only mark for 2 places. So you can make these follow-on solves very quickly. And this is all just finding the easiest restrictions as you move forward before trying to look for those really hard advanced strategies later on. What else can you do with the 4s? With these 2 4s, only 2 places for a 4 in block 1. And then with these 4s and this 4, only 2 places here in block 7. Nothing else with the 4s. Move on to the 5s. With this 5 coming down, you'll notice you have 2 places for a 5 in block 9, and they're a pointing pair because they're in the same column. To go with this 5, you can restrict the 5s in block 3 to these 2 cells. And then with this 5 coming down and the 5 cutting across row 4, you also have a pointing pair of 5s here. So a 5 can't be in this spot. 3 places for a 5 here. I'm not going to mark that. It's technically a claiming triple, but I don't mark that because you just want to mark when there's only 2 possibilities for that fast follow-on solve. Let's move on to these 6s. With these 2 6s, only place for a 6 and block 7 is right here, which displaces that 4. So look at that impact. You displace the 4. You remember you made marks up here for the 4, so you can displace this 4 and solve that cell now for a 4. So you get all these easy solves pretty quick. And we're still on the 6s, so we'll go back to the 6s. With this 6 cutting across row 7, you have a pointing pair of 6s in block 9. Restricts the 6s to these 2 cells in block 8. Continue on with the sixes, with these two sixes, 2 places for 6 right here. So you notice the 1s and 6s are on top of each other. When you see this situation, you found a hidden pair. Basically, you're saying the 1 and 6 can only be in these 2 cells in block 5. So nothing else can be there. So you can rule out all other possibilities, which now leaves just the 5 and 9 in block 5 for these 2 cells. So that's a naked pair. And I cover hidden pairs and naked pairs in my free Sudoku solving guide. But you look at this, and now you can see with this 5, 9, you can actually displace the 5 right here and solve this cell now for a 5, because this naked pair acts as a pointing pair. Nice job. Okay, move on to the 7s. With these 2 7s, you can solve for a 7 here in block 6, displacing that 2. So solve that too. And then in block 7, with this 7 and the 7 in row 7, you can solve for 7 in block 7. And then with these 7s, solve for 7 in block 8. And then notice with this 7 coming up, only 2 places for 7 in block 1. With these 2 7s, you have 3 places here. And with these 7s, you have 3 places here. Not going to mark that. And now you might notice I put a 7 in this mark with the circled cell. Well, if you solve the circled cell, it's part of the puzzle pack. That digit will give you one of the 5 clues you need to solve the entire pack. You have to solve each puzzle, and they each have a circled digit. The circle is just cosmetic. If you've done variant solves and you're wondering if this is even or odd, it can be either even or odd for the purposes of this pack. You want to figure out what the circled cell is. Okay. Go on the 8s. Well, the 8 here, you can actually make marks for 8s. You can do one better. It's just an 8, 9, so just mark that 8, 9 to finish block 6. Nothing else you can do with the 8s. Move on to the 9s. Only one given 9. And so you might see that these 9s, they act as a naked pair and as a pointing pair. So the 9s can only be in these 2 spots in block 4. But then you might notice too, with these 2s, you can displace that 2, solve this for a 2, and so you end up with an 8, 9 naked pair in block 4. Just make it as a naked pair. And then also have an 8, 9 naked pair in column 1. So just finish that out. So step 1 is to find the restrictions 1 through 9. You've done that. Step 2 is to go back through if you had any easy solves and, update your marks. And so you might notice is now with this 3 and these 3s, you can solve for a 3 in block 2, which displaces the 3 right here, and you can solve this cell now for a 3 in block 3. Okay, and then you might see with these 5s, only 2 places for a 5 in block 7, so you can mark that. With the 6s, now with these 6s and the 3 there, 2 places for a 6 in block 3. And then the 7s, with these 7s, now you have 2 places for a 7 right here. And you have a little bit more to do with the 7s. You might notice the 7s are restricted to rows 2 and 3 in blocks 1 and 3. So that means the 7's got to be here and here or here and here. So 7s can't be in any of these cells here in row 1. So where can the 7 be in row 1? Has to be in one of these 3 cells. And since you have a 2 here, can't be there. A 7 covers this cell. You can actually solve this cell now for a nice hidden single 7. So you can take advantage of those marks to get another solve there. All right, and then with the 9s, with this 9 cutting across the row, you have 2 places for a 9 now in block 7. So that was step 2. Go and find the easy solve. Step 3, you want to highlight pairs and triples. So this is, the most common strategies involve singles, pairs, and triples. So start looking at pairs and triples. You can get some more easy solves. And where you want to look is what I call the heavy houses. Any row, column, or block that has at least 5 cells filled out. In this case, for pairs and triples, just the ones that have 6 or 7 cells filled out. So look in block 1. You have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this has to be a 7, 8, 9. So you can mark that and remove the 7 from right there. And then in block 7, you'll notice that you just have a 5, 8, 9. So 5, 8, 9 here. And many times when you start lining up and comparing these pairs and triples, you'll get some more solves out. Let's see if you can do that here. And then in row 8, you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9. You need a 5, 6, and an 8. This is a 5, 6. And that's going to be a 5, 6, or an 8. And then in block 9, you also have a 5, 6, or an 8. Take advantage of the marks. You'll notice this can't be a 6, and this can't be a 5. And then in row 3, you can finish up the 7, 8, 9 here. This can't be a 9, and this can't be a 7. Can't make any further solves there. Column 7, you have a 6, 7, 8. So you can put 6, 7, 8 here. And you want to take a quick glance and notice if two of the pairs are the same, then you'd be able to make a solve. You might have a hidden single. You don't in this case, but it's always worth looking at. And then in column 9, it's the last triple that you can mark. It's a 5, 8, 9. Make a triple with these 3 cells. And that's about it. Still no more extra solves. And this reminds me of a Kobe Sanchez video where she said that if you want to win more, you need to whine less. So to win more, you need to whine less. You either whine or you win. And winners rarely do both. So it'd be easy to quit right now or just whine about how hard the puzzle is because you haven't found the next solve. But don't do that because you are a winner. You just need to apply the next step in this optimal order of solving that I'm teaching you. Before I show you that, I want you to know that you may be able to solve hard puzzles faster than you think. I offer monthly reward puzzle packs that teach you powerful and proven Sudoku strategies to solve puzzles up to 50% faster. And you can win more often. And the real value is you keep your mind sharp for years to come in a fun and exciting way. Look what this Smarty Party member had to say about my puzzle packs. So click on the pinned comment to get the rest of this pack and a new one each month because you want to keep your mind sharp, right? So step 4, when you get to this point, is to look for advanced strategies. And you have 2 options. You can look for single candidate strategies where it's all of one value, or you can look for bi-value cells where there's only 2 possibilities in that cell, because both those represent restrictions in a way, right? If you can eliminate a 7 or 8 from right here, you can solve the cell immediately, right? Let's look at the single candidate strategies, because you marked a lot of bi-value cells and you didn't get anywhere. So if you look at the ones, you notice there's only 4 places left for a 1 in these 4 cells. Can't do anything there. Look at all the 2s. They're all solved. The 3s are all solved. The 4s are all solved. Nice. Look at the 5s, and you just want to highlight every cell that could be a 5. So these can be 5s, these can be 5s, and these can be 5s. And what you're looking for when you do this is you're looking for conjugate pairs. And so what that means is I can remove that for a 5. Is you have 2 possibilities for a candidate. So this is a conjugate pair. Either 5's here in the block or it's there and in the column. This is a conjugate pair. A 5's got to be here. If it's not here, it's there. And these create powerful restrictions with the solving. You have a conjugate pair here and here and here, but you don't have anything that's going to help you solve the puzzle further because these conjugate pairs, they don't work well together with the 5's. So remove that. Let's move on. Look at the 6's. And you just want to mark where the 6's can be. If you have marks like we do here in blocks 9 and 8, makes it a little bit quicker to get those marks in. And you've already found some restrictions there. So look at the 6's. You got a conjugate pair here. You got them here. And they seem, there's quite a few of them, but none of them relate to any solves here. Like these 4, you need to have something going on in this cell to help out. But you've already eliminated 6 from this cell. Same thing here. So there's conjugate pairs, but no, when you compare them, there's no solves that you're making. So let's move on to the 7's. The 7's, not much going on with the 7's, just these 4 cells. Can't do any more restrictions there. Move on to the 8's. With this 1, 8, hopefully you can get something done, right? So I'm kind of working through these. Every place that an 8 could be, whether I've marked the middle of the cell or not. And you look, and you have a conjugate pair here. 8 can be there in row 1, right? Only 2 possibilities. You got a conjugate pair here. And normally this forms what you could call a skyscraper. However, it would cause eliminations in these cells where there's already digits placed. So it doesn't help you. Conjugate pair here and here. A lot of conjugate pairs, but nothing that create eliminations. Okay, so we got to move on to the 9s. 9s are your last hope here to get some progress in this puzzle. So where can the 9s be? These cells, here, here, right there, right here, and right there. Okay, look for some conjugate pairs and then start comparing them. What you might notice is, yes, you have conjugate pairs here, block 6, block 4, column 1. But look right here in column 3. There's only 2 possibilities for a 9 in column 3, in row 1 and in row 9. And then look here in block, well, column 5, starting in block 2 and block 8. Also, the 9s are restricted to the same 2 rows, rows 1 and 9. What this tells you is a 9 can be here and here, because it block out the other orange cells, or a 9 can be there and there. You notice how it makes this nice X pattern? When you see this situation, you found a Sudoku X-wing. So the 9s have to be here and here, or here and here. Can't be anywhere else in these rows. So you notice there's possibilities for 9s here, but if you put a 9 there, you'll see very quickly that you would block out 9s in all these cells. The problem is, now in column 3 and 5, where could a 9 go? They both have to be in row 9. You can't have 2 9s in row 9, so that's not a possibility. That's why you can make those eliminations. So you can eliminate a 9 from here and here using the Sudoku X-wing. And X-wings are popular. They show up in a lot of these hard puzzles, and you find these by using the steps I just showed you. You're going to be able to make more progress. You're not done. Now you want to look at the impact on the row, column, and block to move forward. I still have one more step for you as we try to find and solve the circled cell. Since you eliminate 9s from here, where can the 9 go in block 3? It has to be right there. It has to be right there. That's the only place left in block 3 to have a 9. So look at the impact now, row, column, and block. Since you put a 9 right there, this has to be an 8 and this has to be a 9. With this 9, that's an 8 and that's a 9. And what you're doing right now is called my step 5. It's called attack the marks. The marks represent the greatest restriction. So you want to clean up that clutter as quickly as possible, see how far you can get before you get stuck again. And that's what we're doing right now. Since you can eliminate 9s from here, you can now solve this cell for a 9. And then go with this 9. You can solve for a 9 right there. And then you can disambiguate the 5, 9 right here. And these 9s allow you to solve for a 9 here in block 8. And then you can remove that 9 and solve this cell now for a 9. Okay, all that progress you made with the 9s. Now look at the 5s, because you added a 5 right here. You might notice that you get this 9, 8 here. That's got to be a 5. And then with this 5, you can solve for a 5 right here and follow those marks. You can disambiguate and remove the 5 from right there. You can solve for a 5 here in block 8. And now you can disambiguate the 8, 5 right there. And then these 5s, you can solve this for a 5. Let's remove those corner marks, not the center marks. Leave you a nice 6, 8 right there. And then now you solved all of the 5s. And then where do you go from here? You want to look now with the 8s. With this 8, this now has to be a 6. And then you can disambiguate the 1 and the 6 right here. Just attack the marks. You see how the clutter cleans up? With that 1, you can displace that 1. Solve this for a 1. This now has to be an 8. And then with these two 8s, you can solve for an 8 right there. And then you notice that you can solve for 7 right there. And now you're going to solve the circled cell for an 8. So I just gave you one of the 5 clues, 20% of the puzzle pack in this video. So you got to get the puzzle pack by being a Smarty Party member if you want to solve the rest of this and get a shout out at the end of the month. Let's finish the puzzle. This has got to be a 7. And now with this 8 and 7 right here, this has got to be your 6, allowing you to solve this cell now for an 8. You only have 1 digit remaining up here, so this now has to be your 6. And then use this 8 to disambiguate our last 2 cells. That's got to be your 6, and the last digit is an 8. Now, apply what you just learned to solve this next Sudoku. Thank you so much for watching.